Hello, welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we flip the script on traditional business thinking and prove that when you put people first, profits follow. I'm Sandra Coker, your guide on this journey to more engaged teams, loyal customers, and a healthier bottom line. These episodes are brought to you by Human Power Solutions, helping organizations unlock the human potential that powers performance. Whether you're a leader, an HR pro, or a curious change maker, buckle up. We're diving into fresh stories, real-world strategies, and a few laughs along the way. Ready to turn your workplace into a profit-powered people machine? Let's get started. Welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show that reveals how the smartest leaders turn their people into their biggest competitive advantage. I'm Sandra Coker, CEO of Human Power Solutions and author of the international best-selling book, People Profit, How to Improve Your Bottom Line by Investing in Those Above It. If you've ever led a team through a massive transformation, M&A chaos, market crashes, regulatory wildfires, and wonder why some teams emerge stronger while others shatter, today's episode is your masterclass. Our guest today is Sarah Elizabeth Pare, a strategist who guided Fortune 500 giants like Constellation Brands and Canopy Growth through some of the wildest transformations in beverage and cannabis history, from billion-dollar M&A and divestitures to operating model overhauls and investor relations under fire. Sarah operates at the intersection of finance, strategy, insights, and most importantly, people. Now independent and founding her next venture, Bosch, Sarah is based in Rochester, New York, where she's also a proud mom of two and a singer-songwriter in her band, which we're going to talk about. Sarah, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to unpack how you lead from the heart when the stakes are so sky high.
Thank you. That was like an extraordinarily generous introduction. I think your topic of leading with people is so appropriate, even as I reflect on all of that. You know, I was one part of all of those changes, but it's definitely the teams that make all the difference. So I'm excited to talk today.
It really is. It's really, transformation really only works when people feel seen, they're not just managed, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly
you in the audience, if this episode gives you even one tool for your next change initiative, please hit the like, subscribe, and share it with fellow leaders who are in the trenches with you. Your share helps more executives profit from their people. All right, Sarah, let's dive in.
Sure.
All right. So you started at Constellation Brands as an intern, and rose to, and you rose to senior strategy roles, then jumped into Cannabis Frontier with Canopy Growth as a VP of Investor Relations and Chief of Staff. That's like crazy. That's a rise. So tell us a little bit about that rise.
I know. Well, it always looks more logical in hindsight than it does as you're going through it, doesn't it? I think for myself, I'm an incredibly entrepreneurial individual, and I am ambitious, and I like working with people. I really like tackling the hardest, most challenging projects. And if I reflect on every single change catalyst that happened in terms of roles and responsibilities in my career, it was always a result of something that was happening in the business and that was opening up. Every role that I took, starting with the investor relations role into strategy and then jumping into cannabis, they were all completely new ventures. They were all completely new roles. In the case of investor relations, that was really an outcome of the beer acquisition that Constellation did and needing to expand the investor relations team. And the same is true for these other roles that I've taken. So it looks linear. There were certainly moments in my career where I felt like I was stalling out. There was moments when I felt frustrated and confused in terms of where my role was and where I'd go next, where I tried things that did not work at all. But you figure it out as you go. That's part of the whole journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, was there a pivotal moment early on that taught you that strategy without people buy-in is just a strategy that collects dust?
Oh, what an interesting question. Yeah, it's actually the instance that I can think of that comes to the top of my head really isn't about strategy itself. It's something I learned through my investor relations role, actually. I think investor relations was a massively informative foundation for me to then go into strategy afterwards. So if you're not super familiar with that IR, that role is a lot like your comms team, except they have to defend the strategy and the results to your investors. And investors are objective outsiders. They don't have all of the information. They're not in the trenches with you, and they can be extraordinarily critical at times. They can be combative at times, especially when you're going through a significant amount of transformation and your leadership team is making big calls and taking big bets and investing lots of money into something. And one of the most extraordinary leaders I worked for was a woman by the name of Patty Jan Erlab. She led our investor relations team, and she really would go to every single preparation meeting acting as the conduit between investors and management in the most authentic and uncomfortable way. Like she would come to these meetings prepared with the most critical, difficult, hard to answer questions. And she would never back down. She would absolutely never back down. And it wasn't that she wanted to be combated with the management team. It wasn't that she wanted to be a pain. It's that she knew the investors were going to ask those questions, and she knew that they were valid and they needed to be respected and they needed to have answers. And it wasn't necessarily her job to come up with the answers. It's really management. And so as it gets back to that buy-in component, that's really where I first saw the pressure testing of how strong the conviction was from management and the team supporting management to go through these changes and going through these really, really difficult questions and challenges and being able to stand up for them and embracing the criticism that could come around as part of the process going into making decisions.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the pressure that must have been on all of you, just kind of going through all of that. And so I was kind of cruising through some of your LinkedIn and, kind of like doing a little bit of research before you and I got together. And I love this. One recommendation on your LinkedIn that you have on your LinkedIn page says you lead from the heart with humility and respect for people in the trenches, which I
was
love,
really
right? Well, I mean, it just shows. I mean, the little time you and I have spent together, I can, just your heart just really comes through. And, in those high pressure environments like the Constellation beer wine empire or Canopy's regulatory roller coaster, because cannabis is like crazy right now.
Yeah.
How do you spot when leaders are treating transformation as a spreadsheet exercise versus a human one? Like, how do you
that's a great question too. I mean, oh gosh, honestly, it's really about inviting the conversation. And it does come back to that criticism element as well. Like, is the leadership really listening to what the people on the ground who are ultimately accountable for the execution of this plan? Are we listening to what they say? Now, there's a natural tension that has to come within that, right? Leaders have to set the vision. They have to see the vision. They have to make it very clear what we're going after. And it's hard. These are hard things. And you're putting out a challenge that is going to make people's stomachs drop, right?
Right.
It wouldn't be a transformation if that wasn't the case, right?
But it's that roller coaster when your stomach is like,
that's
right?
Yeah, that's right. But there's a wonderful kind of alchemy that happens when you invite people to the table for the engagement in the process, because not only are you giving them a platform to vocalize their fears, their concerns, their criticism, their doubts, but you're also inviting their solutions, right? So it gives them respect for what their role is. It gives them an opportunity to be part of making the solution. And ultimately, those are the things that allow people to be seen and make their choice of buy-in. And then ultimately, I think sometimes we forget too that that final stage of buy-in, it is a choice that people make. And it's something that we need to be on watch for when we're embarking in transformations, because if you have a group of individuals or even one individual in a really, really critical role, and they are ultimately not truly authentically bought in, that can be extraordinarily problematic down the road. It's better to identify that at the outset and address it. And look, none of these places are cages, right? Like people can self-select out. It's not for everyone. And you got to make sure that you bring people along, because ultimately having people bought in and willing to drive this thing forward is what makes it real.
Yeah. But what about those leaders who don't get that? You know, the ones that like, here's my strategy, here's what we're going to do. And, you know, everyone just has to follow along, you know, where they're just so stuck to their strategy versus like, how's this going to affect everybody working here?
Yeah, you know, it just doesn't work. I don't know what more to say than that. It ultimately becomes an environment of fear and anxiety, and that can really, really cascade into some pretty difficult behaviors. You have to have a leadership team that is really holding that leader accountable to the way that they deliver their results, and who's willing to call them on the mat in terms of how they're leading their people. You have to have a leadership team that's very clear about how they want to lead people, so that you don't have silos of the organization that are experiencing something that is very, very different and perhaps demoralizing and difficult and dogmatic, as opposed to another portion of the team that might feel incredibly energized. Like, that's also not a formula for success. You know, it's challenging to engage with those leaders. Usually though, in the case of those leaders, it really comes from a place of fear or disengagement on their own part. It's usually a result of them fearing not making those results happen. And so the tool that they feel is most accessible to them is that control, and being extraordinarily prescriptive and detailed and dogmatic and precise. And it's also potentially disengagement as well, where they're not necessarily terribly bought in to the bigger vision. They're not there for the broader leadership team. But they want to make sure that they get their day. And that it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah. I love that. I've done quite a bit of work in the cannabis space, and, you know, it's a great space. It's a growing space. But sometimes people start these companies, they're growers, right? They've been growing and then suddenly it's like, here they have this, you know, conglomerate and things that they're trying to work with, and they've got PE coming in, and now there's all these regulations, and each state has different regulations. I mean, it's got to be so.
It's extraordinarily complex. It's extraordinarily difficult. I mean, you were so sweet to give me all these wonderful accolades at the top of the conversation. But like, if you look at the two stock trajectories of my tenure at Constellation Brands and my tenure at Canopy Growth, they're like complete opposites. And it's because that industry is extraordinarily hard. It attracts individuals who are very passionate about the product, which is something that I gravitate to. I love working with individuals who are passionate. I think that's the best place to be in. But you have to be realistic about the way that the game is set up for you to thrive or struggle. And unfortunately, right now, from a regulatory perspective, we still stack the odds against people who really want to participate. And even further, I mean, we've got a lot of markets who are really founded on social equity programs and giving access to individuals who are disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. But on the flip side, you have such onerous regulation and bureaucracy and hurdles for these individuals to get through that it's almost like we're asking people to achieve something that is completely impossible, and we're not providing resources. I have a dear friend, Sarah Vocal, who lives in New York City, who she has her own consulting company doing just this right now, where she's really acting as a person to help people walk through these regulations. It's wild. It's wild, the amount of challenge that it is.
And I think, a lot of our podcast listeners are these new and up and coming leaders. And, really, your success sometimes is driven by the industry and the regulations and how you can get through it, right?
God,
or your mentors. But
true words were never said.
I know. But your heart is really what helps to get you through. So I want to go to Constellation's. They had a multi-billion-dollar bet on Canopy growth, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the boldest corporate moves ever.
Yeah.
And you were in the room for those M&A evaluations, the market entries and exits, and the operating model restructuring.
Yep.
Can you walk us through either a moment or a time when the financials said go, but the people signal screamed, you got to slow down? Like, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of different moments where you had to step back and assess what are the best options we have available to us right now. And in the case of making the significant investment, there was a lot of belief in what this industry had potential to do. And there was a desire to make our participation as Constellation with Canopy growth real and meaningful, and take that controlling stake. Now, at the time, the valuations had gotten so high that to be able to do that required an extraordinary price tag. But it really came back to that belief that this thing could be quite real. I'm thinking of a few different instances where, you would have conversations about whether to exit a part of the business or whether to hold on to it. And the challenging part of it was that we were always looking forward to the possibility of more favorable regulation.
Yeah.
And there were contrasting opinions, right? There were opinions that felt like we need to be much more conservative. We could cut deeper, faster. We could really streamline the portfolio much, much more quickly. And I think at the end of the day, you have to step back and understand that the ultimate call is at that top leadership level. Like, they're the ones that are going to be responsible for this. And continuously, I think what our leaders saw was the potential and the value of elements that we were still holding on to. And whether it was elements of our CBD business or elements of our cannabis portfolio and the product portfolio, it was difficult to let go of the option to hold on to certain capabilities and certain assets, because it always felt like some big unlock was just around the corner.
Gotcha.
So that was really ultimately the challenge and the struggle at the end of the day. And again, I kind of take it back to, you can only take it so far until the leader makes the call. And then the team has to take responsibility for themselves to say, like, am I going to stay in this boat? Do I feel bought in enough to go execute this plan? Or am I going to just put my head down and like, well, that's what the boss says. I guess I'll do it. I'm not with you. I don't agree with you, but I'm going to stay. I'll believe it when I see it, but and that is not helpful. That doesn't work. Right. So I've seen a lot of different versions of this. I've seen exceptional moments where the team has worked really well together. The Canopy USA strategy in particular was one where the team fought incredibly hard and was extraordinarily creative in the way that they approached those regulatory structures or those legal entity structures. To make something real. And then there were times when, it was disappointing that things couldn't work out the way that we thought they would. We had a lot of complexity we were managing. Yeah.
So, thinking about the post-investment integration, right? So you've made this investment there rolling into your portfolio. What were some of the cultural clashes between this alcohol giant, they're doing it forever, and now with this cannabis startup? What were some of those clashes that you saw?
Yeah, we had, honestly, there was not a super significant amount of overlap. We were never integrated with Constellation brands. Constellation was always operating as its own independent entity, but the way that we partnered together was really through thought partnership and certain individuals who would come over and be part of assessments or projects or initiatives that really needed that outsider point of view. Yeah. And I think the biggest cultural difference between the two companies, everybody who would come and take a peek at Canopy, who was coming from Constellation, would be kind of blown away by the complexity of what we were dealing with. Yeah. In beverage alcohol and beer in particular, right? Like, you're selling something that is viewed in many households as a staple. You have standardized regulatory framework, right. An established route to market. I mean, shoot, you even have like a standard way to look at pricing and volume. But when you're looking at the cannabis industry, you have the number of products are so different. Like, how do you think about pricing and volume of vapes compared to flower, compared to edibles, compared to beverages, compared to all of these different things? Like, just to even be able to report on the segments within your industry has so much more complexity than beverage alcohol. It's
crazy.
Completely different. Crazy. And then, of course, the regulations, to say nothing, and the complexity of growing the product and getting it from seed to sale. Yeah, that was one of the biggest differences. And I think that's one of the areas that we did not fully appreciate, or I'll say for myself. Yeah, I did not fully appreciate going into the cannabis world, the depth of complexity that was going to be involved with that.
Yeah, I've been doing some work with retail. So I work with some of the manufacturers here where I live and some of the retail operations. And it is absolutely insane the amount of product, the knowledge that these guys, like everybody has to have about all the different things that they offer. I was actually really blown away. I'm not a cannabis person. I would have no idea where to start. So it's super interesting here.
It's hard. But, there are people who are doing it. I still have friends who are over at Canopy now, and I'm really proud of them. Like, they're making very real changes, and they're working with what is available and what is working in the company. And I haven't kept super close tabs on all of the financials and elements, but like they're keeping the dream alive.
I love it.
I'd still cheer for my team. I'm always going to cheer for my people.
I love that.
Running a business is hard. Developing your people shouldn't be. At Human Power Solutions, we act as your outsourced chief learning officer, designing custom learning and development experiences that actually move the needle. No fluff, no cookie cutter workshops, just results. Whether your people need better communication, stronger leadership, or less burnout, we provide strategic solutions that align with your goals and keep your team moving forward. Visit hpowersolutions.com and unlock your team's full potential without disrupting operations.
So let's flip a little bit. Let's come back a little bit to some of the traits from the leaders here. So during Canopy's explosive growth and their later challenges, right? How do you think emotional intelligence showed up or didn't in executive decision making? Do you have an example where a leader who had really high EQ was able to turn a skeptical team around?
I think the biggest moment was really when we were looking at the transformation of our Canadian operations. And we really, really went to the table and rethought every single assumption about how that organization could be designed and how it could work. We had established more of a matrix structure within the organization for decision making. And it became clear that, again, with that level of complexity in the go-to-market strategy and the manufacturing and the product, having a single GM at the top of it made a lot more sense. And it was that moment that I believe there was more collaboration and engagement and debate about every single decision than I can recall before. Now that might be in part my bias because that was a project that I was particularly heavily involved in. But I really think that it was an example of really getting everybody to the table and airing out all of those disbeliefs and those limitations, et cetera, and aligning on something that looked very, very different. And it was hard decisions. It was really hard decisions. We made significant cuts. We made significant cuts to our portfolio, to the team, to the operations. And, we even had some of the leaders that were part of creating that, had to move on to other ventures afterwards as well, which was hard. I mean, I think that's some of the hardest work that people don't realize executives sometimes do is sometimes you build a plan and the plan that you come at the end of doesn't have a spot for you in it. And you've got to look at the integrity of what is the business trying to achieve as the priority. Which maybe goes in contrast to your people over profit. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I think ultimately at the end of the day, though, no one wants to be on a team where there isn't a spot for them. So to the end that's what's in the best interest of the individual. It does.
And I think that's right. It's not so much that you have to hold on to your people. You have to do what's right for your people, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Well, and people have to do what's right for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. So those cost saving programs, divestitures, all that transition as you're, kind of making those really hard decisions often feel like a betrayal to employees, right? Who haven't been at that decision making, and all of a sudden they're like, this person's gone, what's happening, right? How do you communicate those transparently, those changes transparently, so trust doesn't tank, right? And you actually use those to strengthen your culture. How do you use that?
You have to tap into, first and foremost, what people are feeling. Like you have to make sure that you're addressing the quote unquote elephant in the room about the anxiety. And you have to lay it out very, very clearly. Like, here are the reasons why we're making these decisions. Here are the beliefs. Here's what we expect to achieve. We know this is going to be difficult. It's difficult to do that in large forums. It really is. I think the magic can happen in the one-on-one conversations, right? And being able to make yourself accessible as a leader to individuals that need to think through it and need to talk through it. Now, that's not to say that you need to coddle everyone. That's not to say that you need to hold everyone's hand, but making sure that you're checking in, or that someone's checking in with individuals, because you don't want anyone to fall through the cracks that's sticking in the team, that's sticking around. You don't want them to fall through the cracks, because if you, again, back to some of our earlier points, if you have individuals who are not bought in, but who are sticking around, it can really, really undermine your success. So I'd say that's, you gotta dig in with the team. You really, really have to, and hold them too. I have this friend who's in the restaurant industry. Yep. And I've been thinking about her style of leadership in particular, because she's just so charismatic and successful and dynamic. And she has this way of looking at you and saying, I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. I have your back. I have your back. And I think that is fundamentally what a leader needs to do when they're guiding someone through change. And it goes back to that aspect too of what is best for that person in the context of what is best for the company. You know, there were times when I had to look at individuals and say, I have your back if this is not for you. Like, I get it. Or I have your back if you want something different within this role. Or I have your back if you want to lean into this project. I'll be there for you. I'll make sure you don't fall. But giving individuals the clarity that, like, the choice is theirs and you're supporting them. Yep. That's really, really important.
That's gold. That is absolute gold. We talk to leaders all the time, and this is for anyone out there who's getting into a leadership role or looking to move up, is, you know, your job is to help to develop the employees and make them better. That will only make you better later on. You know, I love that. So I want to come a little current now. I want to come to you, like, talk about your independent work. So you've gone from Fortune 500 boardroom, to launching Fosh, right?
I'm so excited about
Fosh. So what's the biggest leadership lesson from the corporate world that's taught you that you're applying or rejecting in this new startup life?
Oh, I love that question. Well, in terms of, I could take that in so many different directions. Let's start with the most literal. The most literal is how you engage with the people that you're working with. And I am just so privileged to be working with an incredible team of very, very seasoned leaders. I've got 3 individuals, Todd, Julian, and Tungi. And the 3 of them just really know their craft. They really know their stuff, and we're all in it together. And I think about that aspect of constructive criticism and debate and being able to be very candid with one another. Like, we are racing right now to continue to build, to develop, to fundraise. And when you're building out a startup, there's so many questions. There's just so many questions. It's impossible to avoid the ideas that will come in the middle of the night about a product that might be relevant in 2 years. And then you want to, like, capture that somewhere, or the application of what this could do within a particular city or an environment. So you have all of this brainstorming, you have all this energy, but you have to stay extraordinarily focused on what actually has to be done. And what I enjoy about this team is that we are really, really holding each other accountable to, here come the ideas, document it, grab it, put a pin in it. But, like, let's get back on track. Let's get back on track. None of this is viable if we don't do A, B, and C. And so that's something I'm doing a lot.
But tell us about Fosh. So what does Fosh stand for, number one? And tell us.
You know what? We've actually made the decision. We're not going to tell everybody what Fosh stands for, because we think, that people can decide for themselves.
Love it. What do you do?
Stood for us. But the whole idea came out of the insight that the live event scene just isn't what it used to be, at least in terms of local independent live events. So as you mentioned at the top, I sing in a band. It's a very small band that plays in Rochester and the neighboring town of Hilton, New York. Todd, our founder, has also been in a band for years. Julian loves to go out and see music. Like, he sees multiple concerts in a month. Like, he's just constantly going out. And Tungi as well. Tungi loves to go to Magic Castle, which is just tops. So we all love live events and we come at it from different areas. But if you go into the downtown of any of our major metropolitans these days, it's unlikely that you'll see the local bar completely packed, even if you have an extraordinary band who's playing, or, karaoke or stand-up night. And the insight was that people want this. We know people want this. Like Taylor Swift had the most incredible tour. People want to go out. They want to experience things. Everyone is downloading apps to help manage their screen time so that they can be more present in their lives. But there's a problem that exists in the way that people figure out what's happening in their own towns. The information is fragmented. It's across social media channels. It's across websites and newsletters. And a lot of the operators that are putting these events together, they're not like creating sophisticated listservs or unique like marketing programs. Like they're like me. They work and they play in a band and like someone posts it to Instagram and you share it with your friends and you show up. Right. So what we've created is an AI-powered engine that has proprietary technology for us to do the intake of all the local live events, organize it, and provide it in a platform that has geolocation and location signaling availability. So it really becomes this three legs of a stool marketplace economy that is the local live event scene. You have the fans, people who are going out. You have the acts, the talent that is performing or playing, and you have the venues, the people who are organizing from the restaurants or the bars or the Coliseum, the auditoriums and all of that. And each of these entities has a stake in making this economy run and hum. So as we give individuals the access, our hypothesis is if we make it just as easy for you to select a bar down the street from you that you can drop into tonight, even for one drink, if we make that choice just as easy as choosing the latest thing on your favorite streaming platform that maybe is or is not acted by AI characters and maybe is or is not a screenplay written by an AI tool, people are going to want the authenticity of in-person connection. And as they engage more and more in the live event scene, and as we are able to layer on social networking components so that people can create their own circle of fans that they want to share the shows that they're going to with and notify when they're out to karaoke or a quiz night with their family or bingo,
musical bingo.
Line dancing. I have a girlfriend who loves to go line dancing. All of
I just started line dancing. Literally, it's so fun. It's so hard.
There, it's just right there for people to do. We believe that this is going to be a massive, massive change in the way that our societies work if we get this right. And furthermore, I think there's tons of people like me who are just ready to express themselves creatively and participate in the creative world. I wouldn't give up my singing for anything right now. It is grounding for me. It is essential for me. And I think as people start to engage with these, creative practices, they're going to find that maybe it doesn't pay the bills. Maybe it doesn't have pragmatic, efficient, productive impact, but it has wholeness, wellness, community impact that we're so starving for. We are just starving for right now. So I'm very excited about it. We're live in Philly right now. Our beta platform. You can download it on the App Store. Yeah.
Come to Boston,
Boston's on our list. Everybody we talk to is like, when are you going to bring it to my city? Everyone from like Chicago to Denver, and Camden, Connecticut. Everyone's like, oh, we need that here. There's cool things happening here. And
it's really funny because the line dancing was like, I was at a Rotary meeting at one of our local restaurants. And one of the waitresses happened to mention, we have line dancing here, literally like 5 minutes from our house. Like 3 of us were like, what? So it's like, oh, it's just, but you don't know,
there.
what's going
That's
on.
right.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
just right there.
Super. So
I'm
that's,
so
it's
excited
interesting,
about it.
Sarah. I guess like you're going from, here's the big corporate to we're just changing and doing this. Like,
Yeah.
how's that feeling?
It's great.
The
It feels
entrepreneurial spirit.
great.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, like, you don't really understand yourself very well until you've lived, until you've experienced things. And, when I talk to people who are younger in their careers, who are trying to figure out their plan and their goal, and like, I just wish that people would give themselves license to be a little bit more exploratory, to be a little bit more curious about themselves instead of trying to pin themselves down to one particular thing. I jumped into wine at Constellation because I like the nostalgia and the romance and the world of wine, the international stories and heritage and the vines. And I never knew that I would go on a journey that included beer and cannabis and everything else. And I think the consistent thread for me is I like it when people are passionate. I like it when people are tackling really, really big problems. And I like being with people who are looking at the data and seeing the signals, but also have the courage that they can will something into existence. And that is creativity at its truest, is that there's data here and there's signals here, but nothing's ever going to tell you exactly what the right answer is. Ultimately, it's a judgment call. And the courageous ones are the ones that make the biggest changes.
I love that. So I literally yesterday was talking with my daughter who's 28, and she's in this corporate job, great benefits, all of that.
Yeah.
And she's passionate about yoga and Pilates, and she's been doing all this kind of stuff. She's lived with me. So I'm an entrepreneur. Like she's watched my iteration of my life, and then she's watched her father who stayed in corporate. It's all good, but she's got a little bit of him and a little bit of me. But we've been talking a lot about how unfulfilled she feels and how she's just like dying inside. And we had this conversation yesterday. I'm like, you need to follow. You're going to be fine no matter what. Like you've got so many skills. She is literally this. She's so much smarter than I ever was. And I didn't take risks until I was 40. I know.
Blow me away with things. Where did you come from?
But I didn't take any risks until I was about 40. Like that was when I first started my entrepreneurial journey. God knows if I'd started it earlier where I'd be. And I was just like, whatever you do, you've got my support. And she's got other people in her life who are very much like, oh, don't leave corporate. And I'm like, it takes a certain person. Not everyone. It's not, the entrepreneurial journey is not for everybody. It just isn't. And that's okay, because we need the people that are working in their jobs, right? Yeah. But if you have that spark, I mean, nothing can stop you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been watching this job economy for some time, and part of starting out as an independent consultant, I'll say it real candidly, it's partly because that was the most marketable way for me to start getting work, honestly. In the way that the job economy functions, the AI bots that are creating the job descriptions and the people using AI to write their cover letters. So like fundamentally we've got AI talking to AI, and like everyone's trying to network, and the warm intro is now like as good as a cold outreach. Like even a warm intro barely gets you anywhere. It's nuts. It's just nuts. I found that for myself, just kind of stabilizing and figuring out what I wanted my next journey to be, the most straightforward thing for me to do was work with my network and pick up projects for people who already know and trust me. I think also, it's, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, it can be challenging to look at a standard 9-to-5 job and want to do it. And I know that that might sound to many people irresponsible and ridiculous and silly. But again, like, you have to do what is right for you, because if I jumped into a role that I could not really believe in and really put myself into, I'm not doing that role service. I'm not doing that team service. I'm not doing myself service. So it's
right.
I don't know if you've ever heard Amanda Doyle on the Glennon Doyle podcast, but Amanda always says there's no such thing as one-way liberation. Like, you have to do what's right for you, because by doing what's right for you, you're doing what's right for everybody as well.
Yeah, people are under, for sure. Love it. That was like a total digression, but I loved what you were saying, and it just brought me back to my conversation yesterday with her. I am too.
Wow.
I said to my husband, I'm like, oh, I think she's going to do X, Y, and Z. And he was like, why? And I'm like, what do you mean why? And he's like, that's right. She's got all these resources. I'm like, yeah, she's got everything in line that she's going to be so fine. And like, I'm thrilled for her. And, I'm excited to see her journey for sure. All right. So we have a little, I'll let you know. Yeah. So I have a cool, like, little rapid fire round, if you're ready. So some quick questions. Don't overthink the answers. This is just kind of a fun thing. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Asking me not to overthink is like asking me to not breathe, but that's okay.
It's okay. You got this. You got this.
All right.
One leadership phrase you wish would retire forever.
We can do hard things.
Okay. Nice. That's good. The hardest transformation conversation you've ever led.
The Canada business turnaround at Canopy Growth.
Yeah, that's the hardest one. Okay. All right. So you're going to like this, because this is the band bonus. All right. A song lyric that describes your leadership style.
I'm going to deviate.
Okay.
I can't, nothing is popping in, but a quote by, I think, Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
A true friend stabs you in the front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And what it is, it sounds brutal. But it kind of is
Edgar Allan Poe.
Because a real friend will give you the brutal feedback. A real friend will tell you the brutal truth.
Yeah.
A true friend will stab you in the front. They won't stab you in the back.
Love that.
I can't think of any song lyrics. Gosh.
No. All good. That was perfect. Yeah. If you could require every exec to do one thing before announcing a change, what would it be?
Go to the offices, go to the factories, go to the places where your people are, and just be with them.
Yeah. Love that.
Take it in.
Awesome.
Take it in.
All right. Last one. A dream dinner guest to talk strategy and people.
I'd really love to speak with Jacinda, the former president of New Zealand, or prime minister. Is that her role?
Yeah.
I think that would be remarkable.
I love that. Awesome. So I want to just kind of give some people a takeaway. So, like, when you're thinking about talking to the leaders, what shift would you want every leader listening, to make this quarter? So if you're a leader listening, that you've got the last quarter, we're coming up to the end of the year. What's one shift you'd recommend a leader to make?
Don't be afraid to hear what people have to say. Don't be afraid of what your team has to say. Don't be afraid of their criticism of you. Listen to it. Invite it.
Love it.
That's
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this was another powerhouse episode of the People Profit Podcast. Thank you so much. If Sarah just reframed how you'll lead your next change, please, again, like, subscribe, and share this with one executive who thinks strategy alone wins. Your share builds this movement. Sarah, before we go, tell everyone the best ways to connect with you and learn about Fosh, which I can't wait for you to come to Boston.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to go to Boston too. I'm a BC alum. I want to get back to all of the Boston hangouts. Yeah.
I love that.
So if you're in Philadelphia, you can download the app on the Apple iTunes store. We're close to being live on the Android App Store as well. That might actually, by the time this comes up, that might be live. So first place to start is go to fosh.live.
Nice.
You can find me on LinkedIn easily, and I would be happy to chat with anyone about what we're up to and what we're after. We're really determined to bring this to the full potential, and we'd love to find people who are passionate and excited about joining us.
That's awesome. That's great. Guys, do it today. Leaders, connect with Sarah on LinkedIn. Sarah, thank you so much. Remember that transformations last, right? Transformations that last aren't the biggest. They're the ones built on people who feel valued. I'm Sandra Coker. Keep investing in your people and watch your profits soar. Again, Sarah, thank you so much. Great to have you today.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If you found a nugget of wisdom or even just a spark of inspiration, share the love, subscribe, leave us a review, and pass the episode along to a colleague who's ready to build a people-first culture. Big thanks to our sponsor, Human Power Solutions, for championing workplace where humans thrive and profits rise. Want to learn how they can energize your team? Head over to hpowersolutions.com to get started. I'm Sandra Coker, reminding you that when you invest in people, you invest in profit. See you next time.